أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين سيدنا الممجد بشير المصدق المصطفى الأمجد محمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين ولعنة الله على الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون وما تنفقوا من شيء فإن الله به عليم آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Awaited Savior of humanity, Imam al-Mahdi alayhi salam, respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Our program this evening is to commemorate the demise of the great wife of Rasulullah, one of the greatest women to have ever been created, the mother of Seyeda Zahra alayhi salam, the grandmother of the A'imma alayhimus salam, and the woman who gave life and currency to Islam in its earliest and most difficult times, none other than Her Eminence, Lady Khadija, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha. The verse that we have recited comes to us from Surah Al-Imran, chapter number 3 of the Quran, verse number 92. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about giving from oneself. He speaks about the ability to change one's circumstance of those issues around them by virtue of what a person is willing to give away from themselves. The verse says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. By no means shall you attain a state of righteousness until you can spend from that which you love. وَمَا تُنْفِقُوا مِنْ شَيْءٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ بِهِ عَلِيمٌ. And whatever thing you spend, surely Allah is aware of it. This verse is one of the most interesting verses when it comes to the stations of spirituality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran says, Hum darajatun 'inda rabbihim, that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there are stations, meaning there are grades of proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not every action is the same, not every intention is the same, and ultimately not every person is the same in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Most surely the one who is most honorable in the eyes of Allah is the one with the most God consciousness. And therefore the one who strives harder, strives more, will be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here, this verse starts by saying a conditional point. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ. You will never be able to achieve a station of righteousness. Meaning that if one wants to be able to achieve this station of righteousness, one has to be able to do the second part of the verse. مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. To spend from that which you love. So there's a condition here that if one wants to be able to achieve this station of spirituality, one must do the consequence of that, which is spending from that which they love. The next part of the verse says the station of righteousness is al-birr. Now, the word birr, according to some linguistics, comes from the word bar. And bar means land. But bar in this context means a very wide land. not just a land that is small. So for example, if we look at the plot of land here, this is a smaller plot of land. Al-Bar is a wider plot of land that includes many different types of lands within it. Lands that you can farm from, lands that you can dig from, lands that will be producing crops, lands that will be very beautiful, lands that will be very rugged. It's not one type of land. It's a land that's so wide, it would have many other types of land from within it. Meaning that this type of spirituality is a very encompassing spirituality. It's one that has a multitude of goodness within it. You will have achieved a very high station in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ. You will never achieve this great station of righteousness حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, until you can spend from that which you love. Now here, this is a very interesting concept, because the verse clearly speaks about forms of charity, spending from that which you love. And the concept of infaq and spending on that which you love appears to be giving away charity for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not all charity is the same. There are times in which you will spend from that which is easy, and times when you will spend when life is a little bit more difficult for you. Most people here will have been accustomed to life taking different turns. Sometimes you're in a state where you have lots of wealth, lots of ease and lots of comfort. And sometimes life becomes more straitened. One loses their job. One's health becomes more difficult. Suddenly there's an extra mouth to feed within the family. All of a sudden we have additional guests coming home. All of a sudden there is an accident, and now the savings have to go in a different direction. We all go through the tumult and the change of circumstance within lifestyle. In fact, as we know elsewhere within the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامِ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. We are going to change these days. It's going to go difficult and easy. Different things are going to happen. For the purpose of what? وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. We're going to have these different times within life. For the purpose of what? To see whom amongst you is really a believer in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, we have times when things are more easy and more difficult. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in another verse in Surah Al-Imran, when He says in verse number 134, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Clearly there is a relationship between when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He loves the doers of good and those who spend in a state of ease as well as in difficulty. Spending can come when you've got lots of money, and at that point it's very easy to be able to spend. I've got all this money, what do I do with it? It's a surplus of money. It's very easy for me to give in charity when someone comes and says, we need to build a new Husayniyah, we need to change the carpets, we need to go on ziyarah, we need to do good things. However, it's more difficult for a person to spend when times are constricted. However, this verse is very interesting because it goes a lot deeper than just spending. And what we want to do this evening in honor of Her Eminence, Lady Khadija, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha, is to divide this verse into 4 categories. 1, spending in terms of wealth. Number 2, spending in terms of time. 3, spending in terms of power. And 4, spending in terms of your own self. And each time, inshallah, we want to look at how all of these different levels of spending for the sake of God out of that which you love is connected to the example of Her Eminence, Lady Khadija, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha. The verse, according to some books of tafasir, has been revealed in honor of His Eminence Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. The narration states that one day Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was in a state of real poverty, real difficulty. Now one can imagine the A'imma alayhimus salam that, of course, in times in Mecca and early in Medina, they were living in difficulty anyway. We know about those circumstances. However, you can imagine a person by nature as charitable as Ali ibn Abi Talib was, how much difficulty he must have been, because every time he earned something, he would give it for someone else and only kept for himself the very minimal amount. Narration says that one day Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam had a shirt of some nature, and this shirt was very torn and very tattered. And by nature, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam would fix the shirt. He would sew patches upon the shirt, and so the shirt was now fixed in some sort of state of him being able to wear it again and again. Eventually, the shirt became so torn, so tattered, that it was beyond repair. And so he decided to take what little amount of money that he had to the market and decided to spend it on buying a new shirt for himself. Why? Because it had got to the point where wearing his own shirt was too difficult for him. He buys the shirt, and as he's returning back from the marketplace to go back towards his house, he comes across somebody in the street who's living in a state of utmost homelessness. He buys the shirt, he comes back from the market, and he finds someone living on the street who's in a desperate state. This person is without clothes. This person is in a state where the cold would get to him or the heat would get to him. And so what does he do with the shirt that he's just managed to save up money for? Of course, it's no surprise. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, the master of generosity, gives the shirt that he had bought for himself to the homeless man who was in a destitute state. In response, this verse would have been revealed of this nature, saying, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will by no means reach a station of righteousness until you can give from that which you love. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam gave from that which was important to him, that which he loved, for the sake of that person's need. And so to honor Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in this moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this kind of verse to eternalize the praise upon Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now think about this closely for a minute. I imagine all of us here, inshallah, are very accustomed to giving charity. Correct? And so giving isn't really that difficult. But the verse here doesn't say give. The verse says, give from that which you love, that which is dear to you. Meaning that the process of the giving of this type of charity is a difficult process of charity. It is not a normal type of charity. If you walk out of the Husayniyah and you see someone on the street and you have £10 in your wallet and you may give the entire £10 note, it's charity. But if it was difficult for you to give, if you found pain to separate yourself with that £10 and still managed to give it, which one is worth more in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Obviously the pain and suffering. Why? Because it disciplined you in being able to separate yourself from the love of dunya, from the love of this world. And that is why it was more important in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, I have seen many times friends, youth, they, for example, will be moving house. Take the scenario of a youth now leaving home for the first time to go into university. And so they'll pack up all their belongings and they'll move out to halls or they'll move out to a new place in order to set themselves up. So the process will be you start to go through your closet and you start to pack everything in the boxes, you put them in the car and you drive and you eventually go down to your new place of living. The norm of this procedure will be you end up seeing the different types of clothes and shoes and games that you have. So mum will say, you've got 4 pairs of shoes, you don't need all these shoes, give some of them away to charity. And what happens? You line them up and you begin to think, well, which one should I give to charity? That one doesn't fit me, so I'll give that one to charity. That one's a little bit scuffed and a bit torn, I'll give that one to charity. This one's the new one, no, I spent £120 on that one last month, I'm not giving that one away. And the one that's easy to give away, you give away to charity. And everyone feels really good about themselves. MashaAllah. Look how much of a mu'min I am. I managed to give away from charity. Look, I pulled a whole box up for the people who are destitute, those people who are homeless, giving to people in Syria and in Iraq and those people who are in desperate times. How much of a mu'min I am. There's a difference being able to give from that which you no longer care about and that which you love. Those things that mean something to you, that which holds your heart, that has a special place in your heart. It may be because you have some memory with that thing. It may be that it was expensive. It may be that someone gave it to you. But because there is importance that you place upon it, it is more valuable. It is more difficult to be able to give away from that thing. And that is the test of this type of charity. Not to be able to give from the things that are easy, but from giving the things that you love. And the one who can learn to give away from that which is important to them, as a result of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you would reach a state of birr, being utmost righteous in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, having understood that, wealth should be the lowest level of being able to give away. Why? It's not really yours in the first place. Everything that was given to you by virtue of this rizq is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place. But still, often we find it very tedious, very difficult to give away from that which we love. Now, as a mental exercise, to really think about this for a moment, before we continue with the muhadara, in your own minds, at an individual level, you as individuals, identify one thing that is really important to you. In terms of wealth, in terms of property, in terms of something material. Think about it for a moment in your own mind. What is it that's really important to you that you would not want to lose, you would not want to part with? Your car? Your shoes? Your bank account? What about that really nice top or dress that you bought? Having identified in your mind that thing which is really dear to you, ask yourself now, if someone came to you and asked for it, would you be able to give it away or not? You know, once we had to deal with a troublesome young brother. I will word it like that. And he was, or is, I think about 14 years old. He's a very good brother, but he was having anger issues. And he was truanting from school. Now you may know that those people who truant from school, those people who bunk school, it gets to a point that eventually the parents can be held legally accountable for this. They can be fined. They can even have antisocial behavior orders given to the family. And eventually, if it becomes so bad, social services would have to step in, correct? So this young Shia brother from the community, London, he was not going to school on a regular basis. And it got to the point where his mother decided that she would take away his PlayStation. This is only a couple of months back, so I'm not talking, I'm talking recent. This is something that I firsthand experienced. Think about this very closely, this story, and our ability to give away or be controlled by materialism. So his mother took away his PlayStation. She had bought it for him, and because he wasn't going to school, she took it away and hid it. What do you think the kid did? Trashed the house. I mean, trashed the house. To the extent that he even broke his own mother's glasses looking for it. Purposefully broke his mother's glasses in anger. So the mother called us and said, my son is acting up. Can you come speak to him? It always happens. Bring the Imam of Jama'ah in afterwards, right? So then we or myself and a teacher from the madrasa, who is a professional teacher, so of course he deals with kids acting up all the time for his job. We went late at night, I'm talking like midnight, to the house. Tried to broker some sort of peace deal. You think brokering a peace deal between Iran and America was difficult? You should see trying to deal with this. So now the mother, of course, explains her side, the kid explains his side, and we begin to talk about the issues and the underlying reasons for why he's not attending school, and he makes promises, and we leave them alone to talk and, try to come to some sort of apology and these sorts of things. Okay, khair. The mother says, I accept your apology. However, I do not want to give your PlayStation back until I see improvement. The kid says, give me the PlayStation back and I can show you improvement. Of course. So again, we're back to loggerheads. So as we're debating and we're discussing, we say to the young brother, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. Who bought you this PlayStation? He said, my mother. So is it yours or is it hers? He said, no, it's hers. Okay. So is it within her right to take the PlayStation off you? Yes or no? Yes. So why are you arguing? He says, but look, I'm promising. I love playing PlayStation. I have my friends. There's time to myself. I must be able to play. We said to him, seeing as it's your mother's, I am going to ask your mother, can I take the PlayStation? Mum, can I take his PlayStation in order to see whether there's improvement? Mum said, of course you can take the PlayStation. Give it back in a month or 3 when you can see ongoing improvement. Listen to this. The youth responded to me by saying, please don't take it. Why? He says, I was planning on selling it in a month's time anyway. What do you mean? He said, look, I play on it a lot, I know, and it's stopping me from catching up on my schoolwork, I know, but I was planning on selling it in a month anyway. It's going to come to the Easter holidays now. Let me have my holidays, and I promise you after I will sell it. So I won't have it won't be distracting me in my schoolwork anymore. I said to him, how much are you planning on selling it for? And he gave us a figure, let's say with all the games and everything, the pads, he said £200. I said, fine. I am saying, I right now will go to the cash point, take out £200 and purchase this from you right now. What do you mean? Well, I can take it from you. It's your mother's and she's allowing me to take it. But you don't want it taken from you. But you're saying you're going to sell it in a month anyway. So I'm saying I'll buy it from you in order to help you to break from that which you love. Break from that which is holding you back in being able to be free from this materialism. I'm going to take it anyway. Tonight, I'm walking out with it by the time you and I finish this conversation. But to help you break away from materialism, I will pay you tonight instead of you taking it in a month's time. You know what he said? No. He could not part with it. So we left him for 10 minutes to think about it and said, in 10 minutes, I'm coming back into your house and I'm going to either pay you £200 or I'm going to walk out with it. The choice is yours. We walked in, he would not sell it to us. So we took it and we left with it. There are people who are so inured by these little things that even if you were to offer them something for it, they could not break away from it. And I ask, what is it in dunya that holds you and I to such an extent that we are incapacitated in growing our spirituality by virtue of being held back by something material? Ask yourself again that question I asked you. What is it that you hold so dearly that you could not give away if someone came and asked you today to take it away from you? Whatever you highlight, whatever you answer, that thing controls you. That thing has power over you, more than your own soul has power over that thing. This is why Zuhud, or being Zahid, was translated by Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam as being the one who lives within the world but does not allow the world to live within him. He lives within dunya, but he doesn't allow dunya to live within him, to control him. Zahid is the one, he may control, he may own things, but he's not owned by the thing itself. And this, what it means here, at the very elementary level of لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. One who can give away from that which they love at the most elementary level is singularly about wealth, property, and something of the material nature. Now, one doesn't need to go far into the biography of Her Eminence Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam to be able to see that she was not controlled by anything material. This was a woman who broke boundaries within her society, who was the richest woman in Arabia, not just by virtue of inheritance, but she continued to expand her wealth through the trade caravans that she owned and distributed amongst the Hijazan community. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam announced his prophethood, the first person to financially assist, and not just assist to the extent of giving every part of her wealth away for the assistance of Islam, was Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam. To the extent that once all the wealth had been spent, the Muslims were living in Sheikh Abu Talib, eating grass, eating leaves in order to survive. Yesterday she was the richest woman in Arabia after spending her wealth for the sake of Islam, freeing slaves, bringing people into the fore of Islam, paying off debts of those people who were in distress. She was left with absolutely nothing. Now immediately we always praise Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam for this. What good is praising her? Does it change anything? Does it help her in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is her reward going to get any bigger? No. The purpose of these stories are for you and I to learn and to reflect upon them. Am I able to give away from that which I love? If I am, then I'm treading the path of Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam. If I'm not, then I can only pay lip service to the greatness of this phenomenal lady. Wealth, it is the easiest thing to give away. After that comes something more difficult. And this is important for our communities, especially in the challenging times you and I live in today. After one gives away their wealth, what is more difficult to give away? Your own time. You see, we all run very busy, or we should all run very busy lives, where we have things to do, that we are either working or studying or doing something. But you will always find that within community, by and large, it is the same number of people that will always do the same things within the community. It is the same people working in the kitchen 5 years ago that are working today. And in 5 years' time, there will be the same people working in the kitchen. The same ones that open the Husseiniya and lock it up, they will be the same ones. The same ones that come and teach in the madrasa, they will be the same ones. The same ones that come and hoover up, they will be the same ones. They will give away their time. But what the community requires is everyone to assist in the community's development, and not just a core number of people to give away from that which they love. All of us can give wealth. What's harder is to give away your own time for the sake of Islam and for the sake of the need of the time. There is an amazing hadith from the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where he says the following: Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has diversified the aspirations of mankind. Think about this hadith very closely. Allah Himself is the one who has diversified the aspirations of mankind, meaning the things that you like to do, the things that you like to do, the things that we enjoy, the things that we are accomplished at. Part of it is by virtue of us. Part of it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made us all very different. What do we mean? Amir al-Mu'minin continues in the hadith. He says, had we all been the same in our likes, in our aspirations, in our professions, the world would have been a very difficult place to live in. Hence, Allah made us all very unique. Think about it very carefully. Imagine if everybody here in this room was a dentist, na'udhu billah. Yes? It would be a very difficult place to live, wouldn't it? Yeah? If all of us were builders, if all of us were taxi drivers, if all of us were one profession, it couldn't work, could it? The world couldn't work. Who is it that diversified us and made us like the things that we like? Part of our theology is, it is us by virtue of exposing ourselves, but there is also part of the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His hand is always over the situation. تَبَارَكَ الَّذِي بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكُ وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Now, think about this for a second. He says, Allah has diversified our aspirations. He has made us all very different. Why? Because had we all been the same, the world would have been a very difficult place to live in. Therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided you towards your expertise in your profession, your area of interest, the thing that you are good at, it might be that you are good at sport. It might be that you're good at art. It might be that you have some sort of profession. It may be that you're an accountant. The fact that Allah Himself has given you that talent doesn't just belong to you anymore. It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning that we have to apply it and implement it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of the betterment of society, for the Husseiniya and the community at large. Why is it that we always find the very same 10 people doing all the work for the Husseiniya, whilst we all reap the benefits of it? The next hardest thing to give away is our time. Because we are very selfish over our own time. We love to be able to have our own time. We come home, many of us, put on the TV, feet goes up, start eating the popcorn. 3 hours later, all the different comedies are finished, the films are finished, we go to sleep. Where was the evening? What happened? Where was the service? Are there not people in the community that don't know how to recite Quran? Are there not people in the community that don't know how to recite dua? Are there not people in the community who need assistance? Can we all not give? It is a shame that there are people who will go through the entire week, 168 hours in the week. Not one is given back in servitude to the needs of the community. How is that possible? Yes, we're all busy, that's the point. لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. Because we love our own time. We want to be making sure we do what's good for us. But the verse says you will not be able to achieve righteousness until we learn to give from that which we love most. And sometimes giving away from our time is what is most needed. Another example of what is most difficult to give away is power and authority, position. When we have power and we have position, no one likes to have that taken away because I'm the man. I'm in control. And that means that others aren't in control and others have to listen to me and do what I say. It feeds into the ego that man has. To give away from when one has power, this is most difficult. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, in one of his famous hadith, he says, the strongest person is the one who manages to forgive when he's in a state of authority. When he can punish and he learns to let go, this is the strongest man because he has overcome all the faculties that will be eating him up inside. Learn to give away from that which you love most. You know, there is a hadith which is profound when it comes to Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam. Think about how much she gave away beyond her wealth, beyond her time for the sake of Islam. Think about this hadith at the realist level, what it meant for Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam to have gone through in her life in regards to the power and the authority that she gave away. She was the most richest woman in Arabia. And of course, with riches comes power and authority. The one hadith says about the birth of Sayyida Fatima alayhi salam, that Sayyida Khadija alayhi salam entered into the pangs of labor. As she entered into the state of labor, she went out of her house in Mecca and she called upon the women of Mecca and said, I am in a state of labor. Who will be my midwife? Who will come to assist me in these moments of me giving birth? Now, normally when someone's in a state of power or authority and they call upon you, you run towards helping them because you know they're going to give you something back in return. Person is powerful, I'll get close to them. Person is rich, they might look after me. Sayyida Khadija alayha salam was responded to by the people of Mecca. They said, you are the wife of that man Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. You are the wife of that man. He is a sorcerer, the madman, the corrupter of our faith, the destroyer of our faith, the person who's taking all our slaves and everything. We will not come and help you. Not one of us from Mecca will come to help you. Yesterday, Sayyida Khadija alayhi salam could have asked for anything from the Meccan community. Now asking for assistance in giving birth, the hadith says not one woman from Mecca came to assist her. The hadith continues. She goes back into her house. Do you know what she sees? 4 lights, divine anwar. And they began to introduce themselves one by one. The first one said, O Khadija, I am your grandmother Hawa salamullahi alayha. The next introduced herself and said, I am Asiya bint Muzahim. The next introduced and said, I am the sister of Musa, Kulthum. The next said, I am Maryam, the mother of Isa, salamullahi alayhunna. We have come to assist you in your time of need, in helping you give birth to Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون. The station of righteousness, the level that Sayyida Khadija alayha salam had reached by virtue of giving away even her power and authority, the mother of Isa alayhi salam came to assist her. Where do you think you and I can get to if we learn to give away from that which we love as well? Last is giving away the self. Material, time, authority, the highest daraja of what one can give away is themselves. Purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because there's nothing more beloved to the human being than themselves. The hadith tells us Seyeda Khadija alayha salam would go up and down twice a day across Ghar Hira with food and water in order to serve Rasulullah. Now think about this. An elderly woman in the heat of Arabia. And if you've walked up Ghar Hira today, those people who have been for Umrah and Hajj, they know today it's still difficult, but there's stones, there's slabs, makes it easy. 1400 years ago, going to that mountain, by God, would have been so difficult for any human being. What do you think it did physically to Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam? But she gave away from herself in servitude of Islam, so that Islam could be what it was then, and hopefully what it can be tomorrow as well. This is this lady that we have come to commemorate and venerate this evening. And when you and I think about Lady Khadija alayhi salam, we can think about this verse, and tonight, in honor of her eminence, we can reflect on how you and I could become closer to practicing this verse, manifesting it in our own life, so that, in honor of her eminence, we know a little bit more about how she lived, and we can become slightly closer to her in the practice of our own living. When it comes to her eminence, alayhi salam, she passes from this world by virtue of having given so much, everything from herself. In the famous tradition that describes her burial, having passed away from this world, Rasulullah does not even have a coffin to bury her with. Imagine the richest woman in Arabia a few years later doesn't even have a coffin to be able to bury herself with. The narration tells us that Rasulullah asked for a coffin to be given. Jibreel Amin descends and he has 5 coffin with him. The first one, he says, is for Seyeda Khadija alayhi salam. The second is for you, Ya Rasulullah. The third is for Fatima al-Zahra. The fourth is for Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the fifth for Imam al-Hasan, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. Rasulullah asks Jibreel, where is the coffin for Hussein ibn Ali? To which he responds by saying, there is no coffin for Hussein ibn Ali. It will be the blood of the neck that gives the ghusl to Hussein, and it shall be the sands of Karbala that give the coffin to Hussein ibn Ali. He will be surrounded by the beasts of the lands of Iraq. He will be calling out for aid, and none will come towards assisting him. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Please raise your hands. Let's join each other in dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the appearance of the awaited Savior, to allow us to be alongside Him at all times in our life and in our death. If we are to pass away from this world before His coming, to raise us from our graves so that we may partake in the victory of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, we ask you, بحق Seyeda Khadija alayha salam, grant us her ziyarah fi dunya wal akhirah. All those people around the world who are in desperate need, grant them shafa'ah بحق Seyeda Khadija alayha salam. And we ask you, in the final moments of our life, we die in the love of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, for the opportunity to improve our fasts, maximize Shahru Ramadan, and inshallah to understand and implement this verse, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, better in our lives. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can I ask you to conclude this discussion with 3 loud salawat, the thawab of which goes to Her Eminence Lady Khadija, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayha.